For all the salespeople listening as well, you need to become self-aware, very self-aware, so you put yourself in the best position to succeed. If you want structure and stability and be a part of like a proven entity, then you've got to skew towards larger companies. If you want and like the ambiguity and the mission of building something from scratch, then you've got to skew towards startups. And most people are not self-aware. You're in recruiting. How many times have you asked somebody, what kind of company are you looking for? And they're like, well, I like the idea of working at a startup, but I also like the idea of working at a big company. And it's like,
oh, all the time. They want to
get
leave
off the fence.
Welcome to Ready Set Exec, the podcast where we sit down with executives across North America to unpack their business, leadership, and expertise.
And every other week, join us for Market Watch. All things hiring, real insights, and no fluff.
Hey everyone, I'm here with Scott Leese, founder and CEO of Scott Leese Consulting and Surf and Sales, helping companies scale revenue and build high-performing sales teams. A serial advisor and investor, Scott brings decades of experience, actionable insights, and a passion for growing people in business. And he has a new event coming soon with Midnight to Millions. Hey, Scott. How you doing?
What's up, John? Good to be here, man.
So obviously the event is this week, and we may not be airing this episode by the time the event comes out, but just wanted to touch on, what is this event about? And for people that missed it, maybe, why do you think there's value? And also, what's the origin story of doing this 24-hour event? We have talked with Neil previously, so I'm very interested in sort of how did you guys come up with this thing?
Yeah, so I actually had this idea back when COVID hit and we were all kind of on lockdown and everything, but I don't think I had the relationships necessarily in place to pull it off at that time. And so it's just been kind of kicking around in my head. And, it goes back to like when I was a kid, there was these like Jerry Lewis telethon kind of things going on. They like raise money for, starving kids or whatever the cause was. And I don't know. I just kind of had this idea, like it would be pretty amazing if you could run a 24-hour sales training, entrepreneur, business kind of coaching thing, virtual, and just kind of chase the time zone. Right. And have people from all over the world. No one's going to stay up for 24 hours straight, obviously, but, make all the sessions recorded and available to people, and don't charge people any money for it. Just do it for free and have a bunch of people donate their time. And, so it's like Scott talks at 1 and John's on at 12 and Neil's on at, 3 or whatever. And just keep going and then go to Australia and go to Japan and go to India and go to, the UK. Right? And do it for 24 hours straight with 24 different speakers, 24 different topics. So I had hosted a little mastermind at my lake house earlier this year. And we were talking about business and different ideas and things. And I told some of the guys about this idea, and a few of them kind of jumped on it and said, hey man, let's try to do that. We can try to help you pull it off. And then I reached out to this company called Sell Better that helps run lots of big in-person and virtual events all across the B2B and tech and everything like that. And so they're kind of the production arm of the event. And we've got, cool sponsors like Pod and Zoom Info kind of helping us out. So pretty excited, man. We've got thousands of people who have registered. We'll see how it goes. I'm sure there'll be some interesting hiccups and stuff like that. And I've got to personally try to stay up for 24 hours straight, which will be a challenge at my ripe old age. But it should be a lot of fun. And, it's kind of just about giving back and trying to do something different and unique and creative and take a big kind of ambitious swing at something and see how you do.
So if this goes well, are we going to be expecting 24-hour marathons every so often, or?
We might decide to make it kind of an annual thing. There's a lot that goes into it, a lot, from all the assets to the production quality, all the different people you're trying to coordinate with, and line up schedules and
Yeah.
topics, and
Are people fighting
distribution and
over time
promotion.
slots? They're like, yeah, I
No,
want noon. I need 1 o'clock. I'm not going to be at midnight.
yeah, I don't want to give away all my secrets, but I did pretty good at not having that, be too big of an issue. What was interesting is how vain some people are, frankly. We generated these like AI images, and people would come back and say, hey, I look too old, or I look too chubby, or my skin tone is off, or whatever. And it's like, oh my God, really? Okay, well, we got to go back and fix it. So there's you're dealing with successful people who have an ego and want to be presented in a particular way. So there's a lot of that stuff, but I managed to avoid this sort of, I want that time slot, I want this time slot. We didn't deal with much of that.
That's cool. Well, I mean, I think, it's being creative and thinking outside the box is like definitely, because everyone's doing the same plays, right, in terms of how they're getting out there. So, you gotta think of new ways to do that. And,
yeah, I mean, everybody's done webinars, right? I don't know anybody who's done 24 hours straight. No. So it's just about trying to come up with a unique spin on things.
Well, I know one guy that does 24 hours straight, Keith Sutherland.
Oh yeah, well that's the kind of theme and the branding around it is back to that cool TV show of 24 and the tick 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 and the clock kind of.
Are you gonna have a sound effect? You got to have sound effect.
We do actually have the sound effect.
All right, now you're legit. You got the sound effects and the theme, so that's good. Yeah. So one of the things I wanted to talk to you today about was social media as a strategy and go to market, because obviously with yourself, I see you've been very successful on LinkedIn and in the past, and building your following and so on. So it's from a go to market perspective, I think like everyone needs to be on socials now, right? And including more channels. I think we talked about how the reach on LinkedIn has kind of plummeted since they've changed the algorithm and so on, and people are now looking at non-traditional kind of channels, like I heard you're on TikTok now and so on, right? So how do you adjust your strategy going into these other channels that are like, I mean, I thought TikTok was for kids, but now it's wide open for business, I guess. How do you find community on these other channels? Like, how do you start over? It's almost like reinventing yourself, almost, is it? Or are you just...
There's a lot to kind of think about here. First of all, it is 100% like starting over from scratch. Because you are. I mean, in my case, I didn't have an account. I didn't have an Instagram account, not even like a personal one, really, right? Let alone a TikTok account. So it is starting from scratch. You have no idea what you're doing, number one. You're not going to be good at it right away. It's very humbling. Nobody knows who you are and doesn't care. It's like your status is not carrying over necessarily from one platform to the other. So you're a big deal on this other platform. Nobody knows, nobody cares. So it's funny, I've gotten some troll comments like, look at this guy, he's got a whopping 16,000 followers and thinks he knows everything about sales. It's like, okay, well, that guy has a point probably if all he's doing is looking at Instagram and not paying attention to anything else. So like everything else, you have to stick with it, be consistent with it. You experiment a little bit. You try to figure out what's working, what's not working, right? You mix up the backgrounds and all this kind of thing. And the growth is steady, but also has some really big spikes. I never had a big spike when I was growing on LinkedIn. I've been posting on LinkedIn and growing my network for 8 years, almost 9 years now. I never had a post do 1 million impressions, ever. Not ever. I've had multiple already on Instagram do over 1 million impressions with no following whatsoever when they hit. So the algorithm just behaves totally different. So you're learning stuff about that. You asked about how do you build community there. I don't know. I don't know yet. I would not say I have community on TikTok or Instagram or anything like that. I've gone from 0 to 16,000 plus followers on Instagram this year. I've gone from 0 to only 3,000 plus on TikTok. So there's a huge difference for me, at least, in my performance and growth rate. I've gotten leads off of both, even with only 3,000. I actually talked to one this week that saw a TikTok video of mine and wanted to engage. I've gotten leads off of Instagram. I've closed deals off of Instagram specifically. Somebody saw my video and then, went and looked for me on LinkedIn and then DM'd me on LinkedIn and off we went. So it is important to be multi-platform, as one platform maybe changes the algorithm and adjusts and all of a sudden your reach is not what it used to be, or God forbid your account gets hacked or suspended, or I don't know, it goes away for some reason. It's like, what do you do? What do you do then? You've lost everything that you've worked so hard to build, right? I was too slow, looking back. Like I should have embraced some of those platforms years ago, frankly. I just didn't know how and, didn't feel like I had enough time in the day and was reticent to get on camera and feel like a goofball with a selfie stick or whatever. Like, it's like, fuck, man, I'm 48 years old. Nobody told me that I had to be a actor and like a video production expert to be a good salesperson, right? It's been hard enough realizing that you have to be a good writer, a good creative writer and author to be a good salesperson and run a business in 2025, right? It's just like, what's next? Okay, what's next? Now I need to be an engineer. Now I need to learn how to vibe code, and I need to learn how to interact with AI and technology and robots and all this kind of stuff.
Soon you're going to have to learn how to juggle too, it seems.
Dang, it's like this, it just doesn't slow down, right? It doesn't slow down. And I think, for me at least, when you're younger and unencumbered and have more energy, maybe it was always moving that fast and you could just keep up with the pace. But at 48, I'm a single dad. I have 2 teenage boys that I've been raising. I'm running my own businesses, multiple businesses. It's like, it is freaking hard to keep up with the rate of pace and the rate of change. And I don't know if everybody feels that regardless of age or circumstances or what have you, but I definitely feel a difference now than I did, 20 something years ago.
I mean, I think,
but it doesn't mean don't do it.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that for me, like I held back probably too long and I wish I would have started sooner, but I'm doing the best I can right now with it to try to get better.
No, that's fair. And, as a saying there, I think, everyone's probably had a lot of change come at them from COVID to society to now AI boom. There's just so much going on that we're adapting to. So
yeah,
you have to kind of, it's almost a shell shock of like, why can't things go back to normal? And normal for us maybe would have been, when it was just LinkedIn and, even that was for some people hard to do. And
sure.
And now even LinkedIn is going towards those viral clips, right? Posting short little videos and stuff like, so you're right. As a salesperson, it used to be, who could cold call or who was good at closing deals, right? Now it's, you gotta have a whole slew of skills now. So what kind of advice would you give to a new SDR that just finished university, let's say in business, got their first job as an SDR? Like where should their focus be as a new rep?
Yeah.
You just started a job at a tech firm. They're like, sell this AI product, make dials. What do you tell that new kid that's like green,
Well, they need to learn the basics of communication. And some of that is not as not as good as it used to be. Basic skill sets and how to give and show respect. Little thing, like I was at a business event the other day with somebody, and the guy didn't reach for the check. It's like, you're hosting the thing. Reach for the check, dude. Don't make the client pay. Like, what are we doing over here? Looking people in the eye. Being present if you're on a call, Zoom call, not being distracted the whole time or stuff like that. How to do a cold call opener, how to handle objections, how to build value, how to, unearth latent urgency, how to storytell. Like, this is just all basic salesmanship, right? So, what should that new grad focus on first? All of that stuff that has been and probably will be core to being a good salesperson and business person. They need to get good at that first, right? The next thing that I would tell people is you need to build a network, and you need to prioritize building a network, and you need to start now. I know very few people in this day and age who are blindly applying to jobs and getting callbacks, let alone getting hired. So you have to think all the work that you're going to get for the next 20 to 40 years of your life is going to come from your network, from somebody or a friend of yours, or somebody that heard of you through somebody else, some type of network related thing. If you think about selling and the evolution of selling, well, picking up the phone and cold calling does not work the way that it did 20 something years ago. It's not that it doesn't work at all. It just does not work as good. People pick up the phone less. People respond to email less. They even respond to direct messages on social less, right? There's a culture of just leaving people on red and not responding. Ghosting is commonplace, right? It's not even, people I don't even think consider it rude. They're just like, oh, this is relevant, I just won't reply. So if all of these like traditional ways that people have built pipeline and sold and prospected dry up and don't work as good as they used to, you're going to want to rely on your network to open opportunities up for you. I'm going to want to be able to go to John and say, hey man, Susie over here. I really want to get a hold of her. I think she has this problem. I do this. Do you know her well enough to, kind of ping her and say, hey, my buddy Scott wants to talk to you. Are you interested in hearing what he has to say? That's how you're going to be able to open opportunities, because that person over there trusts you to not waste their time and put some jerk in front of them, right? And those type of deals close faster. They have they're stickier. They churn less. They have a higher average contract value. They submit less support tickets. Like, they're built on trust straight away, right? And that there's very few like protective moats, if you will, that are left that keep you in demand. The size of your network is one of them. AI can't replace that or replicate who you know yet, right? So I don't think that that's bad advice. I think that is good advice regardless of somebody's discipline, is start growing your digital network, start building a community, engage with that network, right? Help as many people as possible as you can along the way, because you never know when you might need some help. So stick to the basics for the new grad, nail that stuff, build a network. Those are the two best pieces of advice that I could give to somebody who's just getting out of school.
Yeah, it seems almost like we're getting inundated with too many shiny balls, and everyone's chasing after them with AI and all these other things. And it's really just the way humans interact hasn't changed, in a sense of maybe the medium, phone, internet, video, whatever. But in terms of how we deal with one another, we, having those networks, building trust, human nature hasn't changed maybe, and so we have to stick to that core fundamentals. And I think sometimes we get lost with that, with all these new gadgets and gizmos we have. I know for us with our firm, we've really focused on like on the recruiting side of like relationships, getting to know people, doing video calls with everything we do so that we can maintain that sort of like face-to-face kind of interaction, which builds trust the most as opposed to like a cold email or something, or, a more transactional type interaction, which is what a lot of people are doing.
Yeah, I mean, I think something new comes out and people gravitate to it because it's new and unique and cool. But a lot of the new stuff coming out is starting to skew towards the lowest common denominator, and stuff doesn't require much effort, frankly. And if the world becomes fully automated and all robotic and everything like that, how are you going to stand out? Well, the easiest way to stand out is to do a bunch of unscalable, truly human things. It's to visit with people face to face. It's to shake hands. It's to make sure you're looking somebody, in the eye, right? It's go visit prospects, go visit customers, get on a plane again, like we used to have to do, right? You got to prove your humanity in some way. So I think we're headed towards this. I think we're headed towards a sales world where there'll be one camp that is fully embracing technology and AI and the, sort of banging the drum of efficiency and all that kind of stuff. And I think there'll be a counterculture rebellion to that, where there's all these people who are sort of saying, I'm human. We do things in a human way. We care differently. And those two camps, I think, are going to be very at odds, right? And it almost could become a badge of honor either way. The technology side will say, hey, these people are stuck in the past. We've embraced technology. That's a badge of honor for us. The people who are skewing towards doing unscalable human things, they'll say, well, that's a badge of honor. I give a shit still. I care. I'm staying human. I'm not turning over all of my effort and all of my thinking to an algorithm or to an AI, co-pilot, if you will. I don't know which camp I'm going to fall in completely. I don't know which camp you're going to fall in. People might vacillate between the two, but I think there will be some people who land on the extreme of each of those camps.
Yeah.
And you can already see it kind of happening in
general, right? So
yeah, sure. And
but
I expect it to continue.
Is there like a middle ground though of using some of this technology to help with automation and to help with the back end and the admin side rather, but keeping sales interactions as personable as possible? Meaning,
well, I think that's where we're at right now.
Yeah,
I feel like that's where we're at right now is the middle ground. But you started to see little hints of people going extreme on one way or the other. But I think the right move is the middle ground in this case. You should stay human and do unscalable things. You also should find ways to embrace AI and have it help you in lots of areas that increase your ability to have a positive impact on other people. And ignoring all that stuff, I think, is dangerous. Not experimenting and playing around with these tools is dangerous. You're going to get sort of left behind, right? But I don't think that you need to outsource every thought that you have to something else, to an algorithm, if you will, right? But I think the middle ground is the right way. I don't know how long that middle ground is going to last, though. I'm distrusting of humanity's ability to to balance things properly.
Well, I mean, I think what we've seen on the AI side, and some companies have already sort of pulled back from going full automation, full AI with a lot of their things. So we've seen that. Like there's been some where they haven't seen the ROI. Like, for example, AI SDRs would be a perfect one where I know people were trying them out, but as far as conversions, I've had a lot of people just say they do not convert at present. People can tell there's a latency, all those reasons, right? So I'm sure at first businesses are always like, hey, if we can cut out all these SDR salaries, we will, because it's a business cost and we can cut them all out. But then if they don't see the results, they'll quickly pivot back to, oh yeah, damn, that was a big mistake. Hire them back.
I think people got excited about the possibility of what could be, and you can visualize what the technology will look like. It's just not there yet, and the buying public is maybe signaling we're not ready for that yet. We don't accept talking to an AI SDR that has lag and latency, that is not responsive or reactive, can't interpret emotions or feedback cues, body language cues, stuff like that, right? So I think you see a lot of people tried it, didn't enjoy the experience or didn't get the results that they were looking for. And now I think you'll see people pull back until the technology catches way up. And I don't think you'll see people stopping trying to build this technology. I quite the opposite. I think most of the money in venture capital is flowing into these types of problems that people are trying to solve. And I think it will keep going there. And if you throw enough money at it and enough time and energy and smart people, they're going to figure it out at some point, and it will be much better. And at that point in time, will the results start to show up? I mean, I think that they will. Right now, no results. A year from now, 2 years from now, 5 years from now, I don't know the answer, but it's not hard for me to imagine a world where that stuff works in the future.
Yeah, well, we'll have to wait and see. I mean, it's a brave new world with how fast it's improving, right? They always say, well, the AI is as worse as it's ever going to be right now. So
exactly. Yeah, right.
It can only improve, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, for yourself, when you're thinking of, all these companies you're dealing with, right? There must be similar things that you're seeing, though. There's a pattern of dysfunction, let's say, in their go-to-market strategy, their sales strategy, and so on. What would you say is like typical types things you're seeing with your customers and so on, that you're like, okay, this is a layup for me to come in and fix? Oh, I've seen this before,
Yeah, I mean, honestly, most of them struggle with the same things. They kind of have an inflated version of what their ideal customer profile is. So it's not super focused. It's too big, too broad, which causes challenges. So they're going after the wrong people at the wrong time, and trying to twist people's arm when they really should just be looking for the people that get it right away. Messaging is always a problem. If people over-explain things, they try to talk to you about every little thing that we can solve and every feature that we have, and people don't care about all of that detail, right? It's like going to buy a car and having the car salesman try to walk you through every nut and bolt and part of the car to try to sell it to you. You don't care about all that stuff. You're like, how much does this cost? And is it safe for my kids? And do you have it in blue? Cool. I got the money. Let's go. Right? So you have to find a way to simplify the messaging in a way that is easy for people to understand and makes the decision feel simple. I think people struggle with what channel to use. They're struggling with their outbound strategy. Everybody is struggling to build enough pipeline. They're just doing the stuff that they used to do, like trying to send, thousands of emails a day or hammer the phones 100 to 200 times a day. And that stuff's not giving them the return that they expected or that they used to get. So they need help thinking of new and creative ways, like this go to network motion we were kind of talking about, right? I think people struggle with juggling everything in the founder role. They don't know when to bring in help. They don't know when to delegate. They don't know how to keep their eye on every single ball because it's impossible. They'll be like, revenue is our most important thing. And then they'll recognize some of their customers are not super happy. And if their customers were happy, they'd go from, just sort of complaining or saying nothing to being champions of the product, which would help you grow actually faster. So then they swing over to, how do I make my customers happy? And then when they're over there, they realize the product is maybe not where it should be. And now they have run over to the product. It's, when you really you should slow down a little bit and get this stuff right the first time so you don't have to go fix it, But we're in such a race of got to get a product out as fast as possible. You release this half-baked product. You pressure a salesperson who hasn't been trained very much to close a deal. They close a deal. That customer becomes not super happy, and it's just like vicious cycle, right? So a lot of the work that I do is just trying to break those patterns with founders and sales orgs and companies, and just build things right the first time. But most startups struggle with the same stuff.
No,
it's not super unique.
Seems like a through line, right? Like a similar story we've heard a lot. But I guess, how do you avoid those problems, right? When you're, as you said, there's these pressures, obviously, for them to get revenue. And I've seen it myself too when we're recruiting for these companies where, they're like, bring me a pioneer, a sales pioneer, right? That'll come in to be the product champion, or, to start selling it. But then they don't have anyone in customer success usually at all. And that's, I always say, burning and churning customers is the way that you're going to be running on a treadmill and not going anywhere. It's like you have to have that integration between all the different departments. So marketing, sales, product, and we hear about being able, all of them, to work together to sort of iterate on things as you hear feedback in real time and make changes really quickly. But if you don't have all those people, it's just the founder running around with their head on fire all the time. It's like, I don't know, it can be a problem. But what do you recommend for that, though, for some of these companies where they're understaffed as well? So it's like the chicken or the egg. If we had the revenue, we'd hire a customer success person. We don't have the revenue. And the founder maybe not the best salesperson either, a lot of times.
Well, this is why starting your sales process with this go-to-network motion is the right move, because you don't have to hire salespeople. You don't have to burn a bunch of cycles on emailing and cold calling all day long. If you create the right referral network, you're getting warm introductions, and that's a lot easier for anybody who's in a sales position, let alone a founder whose sales is maybe not their discipline, right? So it can allow you to scale to, let's just call it the first million. You can scale to the first million faster, easier, without burning a bunch of cycles, without burning a big prospect list, right? Without spending any money on staff and salaries and office space and all this kind of stuff. So you get the revenue that you need. That's one easy way on the revenue side. You can reallocate some of that spend that you otherwise would put in sales into CS, for example, and making sure that those initial customers that you get are happy, they are successful, they become champions, right? You can have realistic growth goals. So you could be careful about taking money from venture, because the growth goals will be wild by comparison, right? You can build a proper foundation before you just start running around acting crazy. Identify your ICP, identify your buyer personas, figure out what objections you're likely to run into, know how you're going to respond to those. How are we going to demo the product? What are we going to show? What are we not going to show? If we're going to cold call, what's that script look like? What's that talk track look like? If we're going to do emails or social DMs, like what does that messaging look like? What about a direct mail campaign or a conference event kind of strategy or a gifting strategy? How are we going to build our brand properly? How are we going to onboard new hires? How are we going to onboard new customers? What's the handoff look like when you close a deal and pass it over to CS? This is all foundational go-to-market playbook building. And most people don't put in that work up front because it's a little bit boring. And it's a little bit feels like you're slowing down rather than speeding up. But the ironic part is you got to slow down a little bit to speed up that much faster. You know?
Is it also that they're just, let's say, they're unsure, so they don't want to put anything down on paper? You know, because if you're like, well, we can, a lot of times I think the mentality is we want to sell. They know they may have a niche customer, but they're like, well, if we can sell to everybody, you know, we don't want to pigeonhole ourselves too much. That's the fear of pigeonholing into a niche, and then you're going to lose out on potential sales when really there's no customer base already to go to. Sort of the fear of you know, we don't exclude these people either.
I think maybe there's a misconception that once you put a playbook and a process in place, it's like canonized and it's the 10 commandments and can never be changed or broken.
Yeah.
And that's not reality. Like your pitch and your process and your playbook, it's a living, breathing organism. Not only will it change and evolve, it has to change and evolve. And you as the founder and or sales leader, you need to look at that thing every 3 to 6 months at least and say, is this still working for us? What do we need to adjust? Did we learn anything new? Right? So I guess I can understand the hesitation. It's just misguided, right? It's misguided. You're to not put something down on paper and say, this is how we're going to do this thing for now, for the foreseeable future, until we have enough data to check results and execution and then adjust. Not doing that is killing startups and businesses, killing them. They don't know how to make educated decisions. I have a client who does 100 million ARR right now. They're a relatively new client. And I was just talking to one of their sales leaders yesterday. And they couldn't tell me some of the most basic pieces of data about like their conversion rates. And I was blown away. I'm like, how is that possible? How do you not have this? And they're like, well, we never put that infrastructure in place. We've never spent time on it. Every time it's been suggested, the answer has just been, no, we have to just keep growing. We have to keep selling. We have to keep doing this. So it's like, you built this business on a house of cards. You built this business on the sand, and one bad storm is going to wash it away. Right? So now I'm trying to convince them to go all the way back to the beginning and say, we need to understand this stuff so we can make smarter
data
decisions.
Points would you say, like, let's say your average tech startup, what data points should they be from day one, like tracking and monitoring, you know?
Well, listen, if you can't tell me how much activity it takes to book a meeting, how many meetings it takes to create an opportunity, and how many opportunities you need in order to close a deal, we have a problem. That is the most basic sales math that there is. Not knowing that stuff is the death of a company's growth rate.
So devil's advocate on that one, though, because I've seen this before. If the people working at the startup were from big enterprise, they may be used to doing 100 calls, getting 10 meetings, right? Let's say, or 8 meetings out of it. I don't know. But their experience was from a well-established brand. When you're with a startup, those same metrics may not apply because you're calling and you're like, and they don't know your brand. They don't recognize it. They're like, who the hell is calling me? So those metrics may be, you know, rosy metrics, meaning like you'll get 10% conversion maybe on cold calling a strong brand that's well known. But if you're calling from a startup now, maybe you're going to get 5. And so if they don't, they may not have that data yet because it hasn't presented itself.
That's why we have to go get it. That's why we have to go get it.
Yeah.
Every company at some point has to acquire this data. At the beginning, if you and I start a company right now, okay? We have no idea what the conversion rates are. So we just have to put in effort. But as we put in effort, we should start to see some level of results. So we track those results. So we start to get a clearer picture of, okay, John and Scott, this is how much effort we need every single day in order to produce the desired result. And over time, you keep working on those numbers and that math and that data. As you have 10, 20, 100 salespeople, you should get to a place where everybody knows exactly what they're supposed to do every single day and how they're supposed to do it, so you can get the results that you want. You don't just not do it in the beginning because there's no historical information. You don't not do it because, oh, we're not IBM and we're not an established brand. I want to know very clearly, because we're not established, what does it take? And if I backtrack for a second, you actually just said something that I believe is one of the core issues with startups and why they fail so often. So many startups try to hire somebody from a big corporate background.
Yeah.
If you and I started a company right now, I am not fucking hiring somebody from Oracle and Intel and IBM and Salesforce. I'm not hiring those people. Those are not startup people. And founders over-optimize for that big brand name experience, thinking it will like carry over, or they're going to show up with some big Rolodex that's going to, open the vaults to all this revenue for people. That doesn't work. What happens is they're ill-equipped to handle the chaos. They're ill-equipped to handle the ambiguity. They're ill-equipped to go figure things out on their own rather than just be told what to do. It very, very rarely works. I'd much rather hire a couple people who just graduated from university, who have the right DNA and are coachable. I can mold them. I don't need this person that's our age, who's been at, some big corporate entity for 30 years and has never been in a startup. That doesn't make sense to me. And yet founders keep hiring those people, no matter what. It's not like I'm saying anything revolutionary. There's thousands of people like me who say the same thing, and they still make the same mistake.
Yeah. Well, I think for them, it's almost like a risk aversion. And I mean, we deal with this when we're hiring for them all the time. The risk aversion is, if they're from a brand, they've already shown that they can do it. They've proven themselves. Okay. And it's the same industry. So if they've done results there, they can do it here. But our pushback always, like you said, is, yeah, but they're used to having a highly structured system, workflows, and so on. The chaos of a startup is foreign to them, and they're used to the name recognition as well. Yeah. Where you call in and you're from one of these big firms, you're from Google or whatever. Right. People will pick up the phone just because you said that. It's not because you're a great salesperson, as much as the brand has so much weight to it that, okay, we'll give you the time of day. You seem legitimate. You're from XYZ company that's well known, right? So and they will struggle, and they will get maybe demotivated if they're used to getting a high conversion rate. Now, like, I'm calling all these people and they're just hanging up in my face because I'm calling from Acme company now. And so I totally get that. And we've definitely addressed that with several clients in terms of adjusting your expectations and finding those scrappy people that are willing to roll up their sleeves.
It's just crazy. They think, this person has done this before. No, they haven't. No, they haven't. They just spent the last 5 years at Salesforce. They've never built something from scratch. It's totally different.
Well, it's the whole hunter versus farmer analogy, right? Are you a hunter or a farmer? And finding people with behavioral profiles that would be able to be that hunter. For me, I feel like that's very much ingrained in who they are as a person. It's you can coach someone up a little bit to a certain extent, but I think it's very much part of their DNA in terms of that kind of mentality. Willing to go out and network, willing to go out and hunt for their meal, right? As opposed to just some really good account executives. You can coach them to do some outbound and be more aggressive, let's say, but I think you're not to say you're born a salesperson, but it very much is a personality thing, and
which if for all the salespeople listening as well, you need to become self-aware, very self-aware, so you put yourself in the best position to succeed. If you want structure and stability and be a part of like a proven entity, then you've got to skew towards larger companies. If you want and like the ambiguity and the mission of building something from scratch, then you've got to skew towards startups. And most people are not self-aware. You're in recruiting. How many times have you asked somebody, what kind of company are you looking for? And they're like, well, I like the idea of working at a startup, but I also like the idea of working at a big company. And it's like,
all the time.
Fucking,
they want to leave it open,
fence, dude. Yeah,
they want to leave it open.
That's somebody who's not self-aware. Like, you know who you are. If you're being absolutely honest with yourself, you know who you are and what you're built for, right? I am not built for corporate life. I am not. I don't care about succeeding so the share price moves up by a nickel so the chairman of the board makes an extra fucking 30 million this year. I'm not motivated by that. I don't care about closing $1 million deal that makes me just a line item on a spreadsheet for some big company. I care about closing $1 million deal for a startup that is so unexpected and powerful that they paint a mural of my face on the wall. I want to feel like I matter.
Glory.
I want to feel like I matter.
Yeah.
I want to feel like I made an impact. I want to move 100 miles an hour. I don't want to have 9 meetings as we decide which flavor of sparkling water we're allowed to have in the refrigerator. Like, I can't handle the red tape and the lack of speed and agility, right? So I never went to those big companies because I was self-aware enough to put myself into a situation that I theoretically should have the best chance to thrive in. Salespeople suck at being self-aware. Hiring managers suck at helping figure out if somebody is self-aware and putting them in the right position to succeed. And that causes a lot of friction, man, and a lot of churn on both sides.
Yeah, I think in those cases, from what you're saying there, I think it really comes down to having those behavioral questions with them to dig into to see, their risk aversion, what it is like, and to see sort of their, like are they entrepreneurial? There's a lot of questions you can ask that are not like, very subtle kind of questions to see sort of what their thought is. Some people are creatures of habit and routine, so corporate life is nice for them. They like every year I get 2% raise and, like all these things. And other people are like, oh, I want equity and I want to grow and build something. And, they're it's just a mentality, and I think that, as you said, self-awareness, if they don't have it, you can interview for it though. And I think that's what a good interviewer can bring out is their risk aversion, their feeling towards, certain aspects. And there's a whole bunch of, assessments you can take as well to sort of give you that behavioral profile. It's something sometimes we like to use, but, in general, I don't like assessments too much because it kind of put people into a box, and, people can be pretty good at writing to the test, if you're assessing. Like DISC, for example, is a great tool sometimes for determining, aggressive sales behavior for high drive individuals, but take it with a grain of salt at the same time. So, what was I going to say? I think we'll end it on that note as we had a pretty.
I don't know. The hour went by fast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll stop the